Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Halloween 2024, October 31st, the last day of October, which means officially in 14 days, I will be in Quartzsite, Arizona. That's the most exciting thing about today that I can think of. Other than getting to talk to you guys in the comment videos, I just love doing this. And let's start with our very usual first guy who comments on the positive news video, which is another kid, another kindness. It was about a kid in England that has a mission to bring candy and reward staff of ambulances in his community. And Ken Gray says, yes, there is hope for the next generation. I agree. There's more than hope. They're setting a great example. Harold Lee Dye on New to Quartzsite. Don't make this rookie mistake. Harold says, looks like an ugly place. Why are there no trees? Well, Harold, it's the desert. It's not the mountains, it's the desert. There are a lot of trees. And to be fair, this was mostly me talking about a video and talking about washes and the dangers of driving through washes. The one picture that I gave that just focused in on a bunch of campers camped out with no background and no mountains. Harold, I'll give it to you. That picture was terrible. But let me tell you, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. Just look at my video today, which is on doing a day trip from Quartzsite to New Mexico. In the thumbnail, I did a picture of a sunset, one of the most spectacular sunsets I've ever seen, behind my trailer in Quartzsite from last winter. It is gorgeous. And so I responded and said, the desert, it is the desert. It is far from an ugly place. The scenery is spectacular. So, Harold, if there's any chance you're hearing this, I hope you get to experience the desert. And I'm sorry, your introduction was a terrible picture from me in my video. Benita Dominguez on the comments video. Thank you. Very informative. What vids do you have listing the difference between the four main LTVAs? The closer distance to town. And basically that's it. There are the facilities like the dump stations and water stations and everything are down in La Posa South where I stay. It's, the two that are further from town. It's the reason it's the most popular one. The other ones have, I'm here in La Posa West. That's one of the ones next to town. Doesn't have vault toilets, but North does. I'm not totally sure about that. But, either if you want to be close to town, you want to be in North or LTVA West or LTVA North. And if you don't, you want to be further out, you're either in La Posa South, and across the street is La Posa Tyson Wash. So, and I'm probably not going to do a video. It would be a super short video. Is it flatter camp surfaces? The surfaces are basically the same. The amenities, water, dump, garbage, more or less campers. I would say there's so much there. If we did a count on number of campers, probably La Posa South would have the most, but and then you go to the two that are close to town, and it looks like more because they're more sort of grouped so they can get into town easily. But there's so much more land out there. If you just keep driving, there's not really a consideration about more or less campers unless you're wanting to be, right near town. Versus the outskirts BLM camp areas. I mean, the BLM 14 days areas are free for 14 days, and there's one way south, and there's one way north, and there's one east, and there's one west, and they're just further out. They're further out from town. That's all, and they don't have the amenities. There's no dump stations. There's no amenities at all. I've seen videos of Kingman as a nice spot. Is it colder than Quartzsite? Kingman's pretty far away from quartzsite. It's kind of a different world. Is Kingman colder than quartzsite? I don't know. I'd have to look up. Let's look at its elevation is going to be what colder or hotter is all about. So Kingman, Arizona, elevation 3,000 feet. So it's in quartzsite's like 800. So it's going to be much colder in Kingman. Quartzsite. I need to get this fixed in my brain. The quartzsite elevation. $879 feet. So it's 3 times. It's 2,100 and change more elevation. So it's going to be much colder in Kingman. All right. Benita Dominguez, I hope I answered all your questions. Rose, Dottie Walking Thoughts was my long form video. And it's just, here's what happened. Like today, I have no idea what my video is going to be today. Yesterday I had the same feeling, and I finished this video and grabbed Dottie, and we went out, and I just put the camera on my chest, and I said, well, I'm just going to walk with Dottie, and I'm going to talk about whatever comes to mind. And literally from the time I'm saying, I turn on the recording and say, hey, this is Rob, Travels with Dottie, this is the date. Even at that point, I had no idea what I was going to talk about. And so what I ended up talking about was the concept of kindness and human evolution. And why am I talking about that? Because it's on my mind. I mean, it's like most of my positive news videos center around kindness and empathy. And I've been, as a therapist and as a human being, I've been really, I wouldn't say obsessed with that, but extremely interested in the concept of kindness and what I think about it. And that's what that video was about. It ended up, just totally organic. And Rose just says first. And I've learned that when people say first, it means they're the first one to see the video. So they saw it, there were 0 views, and boom, they were the first one in. And she has another where she says, I like the walks with special angel Miss Dottie. Hugs to George and Dottie. Happy trails, safe travels. Let's see. Here's one. Pets on the road. That's a couple days old. And Random Spirit says, great tips about emergency vet and GPS coordinates. I'd like to know more about things like, what do you do with your pets when you need to go somewhere? You can't take them along, but it's too warm to leave them in the trailer because you're in the desert and there's no power for the AC to keep them cool. That's the kind of stuff I worry about when I get a camper or trailer. Dottie sure is cute. She reminds me of the min pins I had for 15 years. George sounds like the perfect cat for apartment life. So there's a series of responses from me and responses from her. I'll read them all to you. I said, it does not get hot in quartzsite in the winter when I'm there. I really don't worry about Dottie overheating or George overheating in the trailer. She says, good to know. But if there was a fluke and it did get hot wherever you were, what would you do? Just not go anywhere so you can stay with Dottie and George, cancel your appointment? Well, I say I would take them with me. I often will leave the engine and AC running with the doors locked when I shop or have a short appointment. That said, this is technically not legal in many states. I kind of hesitated to say that because most areas have a law that says you can't leave your engine running unattended, even if the doors are locked. So technically I'm in violation of the law when I do that. I've never really had a problem, but someday I could get back and find a cop standing there or a ticket on my window, I guess. But I'm willing to take that risk. The other thing I didn't say here, when I say take them with me, I'm not going to take George with me. George gets sick, motion sickness. If I guess I believe, and I didn't put this in the type it in because I didn't want to get flamed by people. I believe cats have a substantially higher tolerance to higher temperatures. So I don't have a problem, as long as there's ventilation in here, to get up to as high as 95 inside here. And George is fine. George has access to water. Anything more that I think it's going to be more than 95, you know, I just don't go. And if I think that I'm super uncomfortable and both George and Dottie are uncomfortable, let's say there's a freak thing and it's 100 degrees in quartzsite. Well, I'm going to fire up my generator. I'm going to turn on the IC. If I had an appointment to go someplace, I just probably would not go. I would cancel the appointment. But that's never happened. Certainly if I'm someplace, most of the time, other than when I'm outside of quartzsite, I've got hookups. So even in Eagle Nest, New Mexico, or here in Pahrump, I can control my AC remotely. And I usually don't have to because I set it for, probably when I leave, I set it for about 78 degrees and it'll fire up. And if it doesn't, and I'm off someplace, I have more than one device in here that'll send me a message that high temperature warning, that something, and I'll drop whatever I'm doing and get back there and try to take care of whatever the problem is. And again, that's never happened. I understand people worry about their pets. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. But I haven't personally experienced any kind of crisis with regard to George and Dottie and temperature in the trailer. I was just reminded a couple years ago in quartzsite, I was babysitting a couple of pets that many of you are familiar with, and it was frugal RV gal, Sammy Joe, and Deborah Dickinson's Bandit. So I was babysitting for the two of them when they went to town, and it was a really hot day in quartzsite, so they weren't comfortable leaving them. So we were all outside, and it got hotter and hotter and hotter. It got too hot, so I fired up the generator, turned on the AC, and piled all the dogs into my trailer. So we had Dottie, Sammy Joe, and Bandit and George. This is a little tiny trailer, guys. It was funny, but everybody got along. It was cool. It was cool temperature wise, and it was cool attitude wise. All right. Okay. Dottie Walking Thoughts. Snow Dev says, shine on. I like them. Your hat is your halo. I'm not sure when she says I like them. I'm not sure what she's referring to. Or, yeah, I don't know. But I like it. Pool Man on Dottie Walking Thoughts. I have two questions about Q. How can I get packages, and what's the best way to mark my camp spot to save it when I go to dump my tanks? And I answered Moon Mountain Mail. That's a mail service, and I highly recommend them. Just Google Moon Mountain Mail, quartzsite, and you'll get all the information you need. And two, often people will leave chairs, outdoor rug, table, etc. You see it all the time. Is there a risk somebody's going to come by and steal your stuff? Yeah, I haven't heard about it happening, but I'm sure it occasionally does. So it's a risk you take. The other thing you can do is just gamble that no one's going to take your spot. And you know what? So what if they do? Park someplace else. Park 100 feet away. You have to have the exact space, and the only reason you'd want the exact space is that you're camping with other people, and no stranger's going to come up and take your spot when that's happening. And if they do, the campmates are probably going to say, hey, don't park there, that's Rob's spot, park over there, but this is Rob's spot, whatever. Or you would be leaving your stuff out because you have campmates, and no one's going to steal when there's a collection of rigs together. So there's your answers. Ken Gray says on the comments video, laugh out loud, ending the video with poop. This just shows people that you do not rehearse your comment videos. It's just the last comment ended up being poop related, so what can I couldn't control that. And I have a question from Tommy. How often do you have to go dump your tanks and fill your water? I dump every 2 weeks. Like, no matter what it ends up being, after 2 weeks, you get that dreaded sort of pop when you flush the toilet. It goes, whoop, it makes a sound. That means it's almost full. And so that happens every 2 weeks. And to me, like, you know, I have a macerator pump. I put my 36-gallon tote in the back of my pickup truck. I pump the waste into that. With the macerator pump, I go to the Blue Boy station, I dump that, and I come back, and the whole thing takes less than a half an hour every 2 weeks. No big hardship. In water, I have a 32-gallon fresh water tank, and I have a 6-gallon container that I keep in my car, and every time I go into town, I stop by one of the water stations, put my 4 quarters in, fill that, and when I go home, I dump it into the tank. So every couple of days, every time I go into town, I'm putting 6 gallons into the water tank. So it's always between half and 100% full. Easy peasy. I'm having a hard time keeping this. Let me just use the arrows. Renee says, on the Dottie walk, I love watching happy little Dottie on walks. I saw a sign that I thought you'd like, be the reason someone believes in the goodness of people. Yeah, I would like that. I said I love it. Let's go. Ken says, nice walk and talk. The fact that you need a hat just means it's getting closer to the time to move south. You're absolutely right. When you're right, Ken. Pete Diaz says on comments, most newbies' fears about RVing after towing is the dump station. Maybe some info on what would be helpful, because I don't want to be there, the one holding up in line. I'm sure that could be uncomfortable. Okay. In La Posa South, you sort of wait in line, and there are 2 parallel dump stations that you go to. So when there's a big line, there's always 2 people emptying at the same time. So if you're taking a long time because you're new and you're trying to figure stuff out, the guy next to you is going to clear and people go through. And trust me, everyone is used to occasionally seeing people that get hung up at the dump station, and nobody thinks twice about it. By the time they can see you, that means they're at the head of the line, and that's when they're going to be paying any attention to who's there and how long they're taking. They're so close, they don't care. They know if they're watching you take a long time, they know the other guy's going to be quick. So it's just, holding up the line just really isn't a thing. Here's what in that vein, what bothers me the most is a back-end space in an RV park. I'm a terrible backer. I gotta put it out there and totally admit it. I'm terrible at backing my trailer. And when I came here to Pahrump, my friend Cheryl was standing out there when I arrived, and she hugged me, and I said, hey, can you help back me? Even with her helping me back into this simple little spot, it took me at least 30 minutes. And easily could get in a position where you're blocking traffic, where there's people waiting to drive by. And also, people that are up and around, watch you do it. So that can be really embarrassing. I wish I could get better at that. And please, no advice about backing in the comments. I've heard it all. I've watched all the videos. I've heard all the advice. Trust me, I've researched everything. And no, I'm not going to go out to an empty parking lot with cones and practice for hours. It's just not going to happen. I'm okay with where I am on this, and I tolerate the difficulties I have, because it only happens when I come to Pahrump. When I go up to Eagle Nest, there's nothing to back into. Quartzsite, there's nothing to back into. It's just twice a year. I'm not going to worry about it. Please don't cover the comment sections with backing advice. Please, please, please. Okay. So I'm probably not going to do a video on dump station stuff. There's plenty of videos out there that teach you all sorts of things about how to efficiently dump your tanks, depending on the equipment that you have. There's lots of resources out there for that, and that's not one I'm terribly interested in doing. Wanda Hope Wandering, so many questions about quartzsite. I'm a minivan with a small cooler that needs power. I'm struggling knowing how much power I really need. I have an EcoFlow 260, which, by the way, I don't think exists. I think she means she has an EcoFlow 2600 with a 100-watt solar panel. Someone suggested I would be spending so much time solar powering when it's sunny that I may not have time for activities. You really are helpful and encouraging. This power thing is so confusing. I enjoy your content. Thanks for sharing. So Wanda, I'm going to read my response, but I may edit it because I really didn't respond to something that I just really noticed that I didn't notice before. Let me read my response first. Assume you have an EcoFlow 2600. If that's so, that's plenty of storage. Your battery is plenty big enough, especially if you're just using a small cooler. The 100-watt solar panel is not enough. That panel may get you a total of 300 watts on a sunny day in December. Now, some of you may be thinking, what do you mean only 300 watts? The sun's up for 8 hours. It's sunny all day. It's a 100-watt panel. How are you only going to get 300 watts? Well, you're never going to get in the winter. You're not going to get 100 watts out of that panel, even during the peak of the day. I look at mine and a 100-watt panel. I'd be really happy if I got 75 at the peak of the day. If a really efficient panel, which I don't have, maybe 80, not 100. All right. And then at the beginning of the day, if it's generating, the sun comes up, and when it first comes up, you're getting 0 because you have to get enough sun to trigger the wattage flow into your rig. And, it can be 20 watts, 30 watts in the beginning of the day, and likewise at the end of the day. By the time you average everything out, I did a few calculations, and 300 watts is a pretty good guess for the whole day. Right. So given that, and there are people that might argue with me, let's not do it in the comments. There are people that may say, no, I think you get more than 400. Some people, 500. It's not, 100's not enough. It's very small. Like that EcoFlow has 2,600 watts of storage capacity, and she's got one small little 100-watt panel. That's not enough. And the good news is that, if the battery wasn't enough, that would be a big expense. She can get away with, hang on, that at least double and ideally triple that. I would buy an additional 200-watt panel, which would triple her incoming. So you would get 900 coming in, which would be more than enough if you're charging your phone and your laptop and your cooler. That's plenty. You will need to buy a branch connector to connect the new panel in parallel to the 100-watt panel. If you are unsure, just buy a panel off Amazon. They sell for about $245, including tax. Take it to Solar Bills in town on Main Street. Take everything. You got your EcoFlow, your 100-watt panel, your new 200-watt panel. Say, I want to know how to connect these. They will show you how and sell you the connectors. Because if I'm confusing you by saying you need to connect them in parallel with a branch connector, if you don't know solar stuff, that's like I'm talking gibberish to you. But Solar Bills, they'll just charge you for the connectors. They're not going to charge you a consult fee or something. They're very nice people. I had a great interview last winter with the new owner of Solar Bills. They will explain and sell you the connectors you need. And I think I gave her a link here. Yeah, I gave a link at the bottom to the like a Renogy 200 watt panel that goes for a little less than $245. I think $235 plus whatever tax is. The thing that she said though that I didn't notice before was, let me read it again. She said, someone suggested I'd be spending so much time solar powering when it's sunny that I may not have time for activities. Collecting solar is a pretty passive activity. If you think I need to be there when that's happening, well, I can understand if the EcoFlow 2600 is an expensive piece of equipment, and you probably don't want to have that sitting out there. So I would, run the solar line through a window or a storage compartment or something, and have that EcoFlow inside. Right? Even if you just put it in a storage bay, have it out of sight. So you can, while it's collecting solar, you can go to town. I mean, my solar panels, I've got 3 200 watt and 100 watt solar panel sitting on the ground 24/7 in quartzsite. And I leave them all the time. I leave them for a day at a time. And no one's stolen my solar panels. And this is especially true if you're camping around other people. You're not going to lose your solar panels. So anyway, then maybe you're thinking, so she's in a minivan. Duh. If I were totally genuine with you guys, I would edit out everything I just said for the last 4 minutes, because obviously that's her transportation. So what she's saying is, I can't leave because I have to take everything with me when I go, because I live in my minivan. So I can't just leave my EcoFlow out in the middle of the desert while I drive into town. Obviously, you can't do that unless you're camping with other people and you can leave it with them and do it. The other alternative is, I believe that the EcoFlow can be charged from your cigarette lighter in your minivan, and just plug that in and it'll charge while you're driving. And maybe you could, if you're parking someplace for 4 or 5 hours, like if you're going to the RTR or something for the day, you can set the solar panels up there and charge while, run the line out of your window and put the solar panel maybe flat on top of your car. So it's not really obvious, and you'll be fine. So I'm really sorry that I didn't comprehend exactly what you're saying. I do what we selfishly do so often. I was like comparing your situation to my situation, and without thinking. And you very clearly said that you're in a minivan. First sentence you told me. And so I get it. I hope, Wanda, this is what happens when you're not really thinking. So anyway, I hope I answered that question. So EPH 1 to 4, that is, it is definitely not all the outlets. Still looking for what powers up. I have 3 batteries, so I should be able to power something. Oh, okay. There was a prior, she had a prior comment where she said, hey, I have a switch marked inverter. What is it and what does it do? She's in a Class A, I believe, if I remember correctly. And I said, if you turn it on, it's probably, it's working. It'll energize probably some of the outlets in the rig. And normally, when an inverter is built into an RV, they do it knowing there's limited battery power, so they don't energize all the outlets in the rig. They target specific ones. So it sounds like it's definitely not all the outlets. She turned it on and tried an outlet and it didn't work, but she needs to try more of them to find out which ones are energized. Or it could be in her documentation if she still has that. Or you can just go to a user group. It's always good, guys, if you have a rig, to find like the Facebook owners group and join that, because there's a wealth of knowledge. You're not going to get like maybe the party line answers you get from the manufacturer and the dealer. You're going to get people's real life experience with your rig. I'm on the Winnebago Micro Mini one all the time, and I'm pretty active on there, and I've gotten lots of good information. So you find a user group for whatever class A that you have, and you do a post out there and say, I've got and you give them the make and model and year that you have, the inverter switch. Can anyone tell me what outlets that powers? And probably within, if it's a big group, which most of them are, within an hour you'll get multiple answers telling you exactly what outlets are being powered. And anything else, any other issues that you have, you're going to find real life experience. Oh, and she has another one. We have a long exchange here. So she's commenting on this wonderful positive news video that I did about the Minnesota bus driver who took her shoes off and gave her shoes to a homeless person, then drove away driving in her socks. And EPH says you can actually get a ticket in Minnesota for driving without your shoes. Given she's also DOT endorsed, she put herself at risk by giving the women her shoes. I'm honestly surprised Metro released the video. And I detected a couple of things. One thing that I knew was wrong with that statement, and the other one I suspected, and I got curious. So and innocent enough comment, and understand this: if you have a comment where you're sort of stating facts out there, it's on my channel, so I'm concerned about the accuracy, right? So I'm gonna check, and I did. And the first thing I said is government agencies cannot refuse to release videos of people in public. There are exceptions to that, like police department body cams that are part of an ongoing investigation. They can delay the release, but they can't delay it forever. They have to release that. Public buildings that have video surveillance, like in the lobby, all you need to do is a Freedom of Information Act. They have to release that. They don't have a choice. They can't hold back a video that is video of public video. They just can't. Also, got me curious, so I checked. There's apparently no restriction on driving without shoes in Minnesota. So I did check that, and I found Mankato Free Press had an interview with a state trooper, and I put a link there, and I think she missed the link because she responds to that, says, hopefully it didn't bring any trouble to her. And I'm like, well, she didn't break any. I responded that she didn't break any law. I think she even said on her interview that she violated an agency policy. And I'm sure there's an agency policy that you have to be wearing the correct uniform, and it probably includes shoes. If not, you have to wear. I doubt there's a policy that says you must wear shoes to drive the bus, because that would seem obvious. But properly attired, I'm sure, is a policy. And she said, I'm probably in violation of that technically. So she did her own research, and she said, I did a quick scan over the DTOT CDL endorsement package and stopped at 124 of 200. Lots of topics covered, but not footwear. I drove professionally until 2 years ago in Minnesota. Was required to wear closed-toed shoes and ankle support without steel or ceramic toes. Um, we weren't allowed to work in any footwear that didn't meet the requirements, but could even have it. I get that you really want to be right about this, but it's not illegal. And I think she, like I said, she even said, "Hey, this is a violation of the policies." So I think that I just don't think this is a big deal. It's not illegal, and I repeat it again. Check the link that I included. The Minnesota State Trooper says that it's totally legal. Um, and then she finally thanks me for that. So that was, just me wanting to make sure that even in the comments, when people make statements of fact about things, I want to make sure those facts, if I can check them, I check them and make sure they're correct, so people coming to my channel don't get bad information. And I'm sure Department of Transportation endorsements for commercial licenses, they want you using proper equipment, dressing properly. That I have no doubt about that. That makes perfect sense. So Susan Stevens says on the Dottie Walk, no, Kate Kramer. I'm sorry, Kate, I almost missed you. Love your walking videos and absolutely love your positive kindness shorts. Please keep them coming. I'm counting on you being right about the big picture. Thanks, Kate. And Susan Stevens, you're a great storyteller, Rob. It's always nice to see and hear you in your videos. Probably except for the driving videos. I know you don't want to see me. You want to see the road. Right, Dottie? Dottie's still sleeping. What a lazy dog. Lisa. Hey, Lisa. I'm going to be seeing you soon, Lisa, in 2 weeks. I believe in kindness and I'm grateful to you for your daily kindness posts. I wish more people saw them. Me too. I think yesterday's got like 70 views. Terrible. Robin Goff says, I also like your walk and talks with Dottie. I have a friend who was T-boned by a city bus, hospitalized for a long time, but a couple of days after the accident, she's lying unconscious, but I noticed her feet were starting to lean forward. I asked her husband, and he said therapy said to get her shoes and have her wear them while she's unconscious. Instead of him going home to get a pair, hers were destroyed rescuing her. I took my shoes off and put them on her. She and I actually wore the same size. She has recovered as much as she will. She is still here, slower, but still here. Hugs and treats to George and Dottie for me and the two boys. Orange cats like George. It was in the 30s where I am in Washington when I woke up today. So Robin is simply saying, I'm sure my story triggered this amazing memory that she had of her friend. And remembered how easy it was to see the need and just pull the shoes off. Give her the shoes. I'm sure she drove home in her socks. And I'm sure she did just fine. So I think that's the last one, but let me reload and see if there's any new ones. Okay. Where do you get a list? So there was a video I just released this morning about how to do a day trip and why to do a day trip from Quartzsite to Mexico. And Adventure by the Mile says, where do you get a list of medications you cannot bring back into the United States? Well, let's just find a link for you. Let's go ahead. Medications you cannot bring into the U.S. from Mexico. Let's see, there must be. Well, it may not be as easy as I thought. All right, I'll tell you what. This is the end of this video. I'm going to do a little research. I won't make you sit here and watch me Google search. That's pretty boring. And I will answer that comment with a link where it's pretty straightforward. It's going to take me a minute to find it. So I want to thank you for hanging in there with me up to another 40-minute comment video. Take care, and I'll see you tomorrow. I'm grateful for you watching.